First Contact Protocol. The Galactic Assembly had existed for over 12,000 years, uniting 17 advanced species across 3 spiral arms of the Milky Way. They had protocols for everything. First contact, territorial disputes, technological exchange, even the proper way to declare war. But nothing in their vast archives prepared them for humanity. Humans were an unremarkable species physically. No exceptional strength like the Yotar, no telepathic abilities like the Medusans, no silicon-based physiology like the Krell that allowed them to survive in extreme environments. By all measures, humans should have been categorized as a Class C civilization, worthy of observation but not immediate integration. Yet within 50 years of discovering faster-than-light travel, humanity had established colonies on 17 worlds and built a fleet of warships that drew uneasy attention from even the oldest members of the Assembly. Another human vessel has entered the Proxima trading route, announced diplomat Vexillera, her crystalline appendages flickering with concern as she addressed the Assembly Council. The UNSC Thermopylae, a dreadnought-class warship. High Elder Zoran, his age-worn scales glistening under the chamber lights, leaned forward. Have the Cartelian observers analyzed its capabilities? Vexillera's crystalline structures dimmed slightly. They refused. High Elder. A murmur rippled through the chamber. The Cartelians were the Assembly's premier intelligence service, renowned for their sophisticated scanning technology that could penetrate any known shield or hull. Explain, commanded Zoran. They cited the Thulian incident, High Elder. The chamber fell silent. 3 standard cycles ago, a Thulian science vessel had attempted to scan a human cruiser called the UNSC Odyssey. What happened next remained classified at the highest levels, but the Thulian vessel had been found drifting, its crew of brilliant scientists reduced to catatonic shells, their neural networks corrupted beyond repair. Surely one isolated incident, began Counselor Drax of the Mechanoid Collective. It wasn't isolated, interrupted Security Director Krata, his exoskeleton clicking nervously. The Zeth Dominion lost contact with 2 of their stealth frigates last cycle. They were monitoring human expansion in the Orion Arm. Their last transmission mentioned initiating a deep scan of a human destroyer. The Assembly Council chamber, normally a model of decorum, erupted in alarmed conversations. High Elder Zoran struck his staff against the floor, restoring order. What do we know about human defensive capabilities? He asked. Admiral Xolak of the Assembly Defense Force rose from his seat. Very little that makes sense, High Elder. Their hulls are composed of standard alloys, nothing our weapons couldn't penetrate. Their weaponry is primitive by our standards. Railguns, nuclear missiles, rudimentary energy weapons. But what, Admiral? Xolak's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of deep discomfort among his species. But no one who has attempted to fully analyze their warships has survived with their minds intact. It's as if something inside those ships doesn't want to be seen. The Assembly, in its 12 millennia of existence, had never faced such a conundrum. A species whose technology they couldn't understand was unprecedented. More unsettling was that the humans themselves seemed unaware of the effect their vessels had on scanning equipment. Diplomatic interactions with human representatives were cordial, if somewhat guarded. Trade agreements had been established. Cultural exchanges were underway. Yet their warships remained an enigma that none dared to probe too deeply. We need answers, declared High Elder Zoran. But we must approach this with extreme caution. Thus began Operation Ghostlight, a classified initiative to uncover the secrets of human warships without risking direct scanning. Remote observation posts were established. Assembly agents infiltrated human space stations. Debris from human vessel skirmishes was collected and studied. But the mystery only deepened. Analysis of recovered hull fragments showed nothing unusual. Interviews with human engineers revealed standard propulsion systems and defensive measures. Yet something about assembled operational human warships defied conventional understanding. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. Ilara, Tisoni, a xenoanthropologist who had spent years studying human culture, requested an audience with the Assembly Council. "I believe I understand what's happening," she said, standing before the gathered representatives of 17 alien civilizations. "But you won't like the explanation." "Proceed, Doctor," said High Elder Zoran. "Humans are unique among known sentient species in one crucial aspect," Dr. Tisoni explained. "They are the only species we've encountered that evolved alongside predators that specifically hunted them for intelligence." Confused murmurs filled the chamber. On Earth, humans weren't always the apex predator. For millions of years, they were prey. Their brains developed not just for problem-solving, but for detecting and evading threats. What makes humans dangerous isn't their technology. It's how they think. "What does this have to do with their warships?" demanded Counselor Drax. "Everything," responded Tisoni. "Humans approach warfare differently than any species in the Assembly. For us, war is a continuation of politics, a means to an end. For humans, it's existential. When they build warships, they aren't just assembling technology. They're creating weapons with a singular purpose: survival at any cost." Dr. Tisoni activated a holographic display showing schematics of human neural patterns. Human brains generate a unique electromagnetic signature when in states of high alertness or combat readiness. My theory is that human warships have integrated this neural pattern into their defensive systems. The implications stunned the Assembly Council into silence. What Dr. Tisoni was suggesting would revolutionize their understanding of defensive technology. "Are you claiming their ships are sentient?" asked Vexilera. "Not sentient," corrected Tisoni. "Reactive, like an immune system. When our scanners probe human warships, they encounter defense algorithms based on human neural patterns, systems designed to recognize threats and respond instinctively. We're essentially triggering the ship's fight-or-flight response." The Assembly Council debated this theory for days. Some dismissed it as impossible. Others feared it might be true, which would mean the humans had achieved a technological breakthrough that outstripped even the oldest species in the galaxy. Meanwhile, incidents continued. The Navary Exploration Guild lost contact with a research vessel that had approached too close to a human military exercise. A Elysian commercial freighter reported critical system failures after its automated scanners briefly locked onto a passing human cruiser. The pattern was undeniable. Something about human warships reacted violently to being scanned, analyzed, or probed too deeply. And that something was devastating enough to disable the most advanced sensor systems in the galaxy or worse, inflict psychological damage on the operators of those systems. Rumors spread rapidly. Human warships became the subject of hushed conversations in every spaceport across Assembly territory. Some claimed the vessels contained artificial black holes. Others whispered about dimensional rifts to realms of pure chaos. The most outlandish theories suggested that humans had somehow captured and weaponized sentient cosmic horrors. The truth, when it finally emerged, would prove far more terrifying than any of these speculations. It began with a distress signal from the scientific research station Lumina, positioned at the edge of human space. The message, fragmented and distorted, mentioned a successful deep scan of a human battleship called the UNSC Cerberus. Then communication abruptly ceased. When an assembly rescue team arrived at Lumina, they found a station in perfect working order, except for the research team. All 57 scientists were found alive, but profoundly altered. They moved and spoke normally, but their behavior had changed. They expressed no interest in returning to assembly space. They showed no recognition of colleagues or family. And most disturbing of all, they spoke of the void within with reverent fascination. "It recognized us," one researcher repeated continuously. "It saw us looking, and it looked back." High Elder Zoran classified all findings related to the Lumina incident, but it was too late. Fear had taken root throughout the assembly. A new protocol was quietly implemented across all member species. Under no circumstances was any vessel, scientific or military, to attempt scanning human warships. The risk was deemed too great, the consequences too unpredictable. Humanity, oblivious to the terror they had inspired, continued their expansion into the stars. Their diplomats expressed confusion at the sudden reticence of alien species to engage in joint military exercises. Their scientists couldn't understand why their offers to share defensive technology were politely but firmly declined. And all the while, their warships, those mysterious vessels that had somehow accidentally stumbled upon the most terrifying defense mechanism in the galaxy, patrolled the borders of human space, carrying within them a secret that even humanity itself did not fully comprehend. The truth behind the void. 5 galactic years after the implementation of the non-scan protocol, the Assembly faced its greatest crisis. A previously unknown species emerged from the galactic core, the Swarm, a hive-minded collective that consumed rather than conquered. Conventional weapons proved ineffective against their organic vessels, which adapted rapidly to any attack strategy. "The Swarm has overtaken the Krell homeworld," reported Admiral Solak grimly. "Their defenses lasted 17 hours. We estimate less than 30% of the population escaped." High Elder Zoran, looking frailer than ever, surveyed the holographic display showing the Swarm's inexorable advance. "Our models predict they will reach Assembly core worlds within 3 cycles. We need unconventional solutions." Security Director Krata's exoskeleton rattled nervously. "There is one option we haven't considered." All eyes turned to him. The humans. A tense silence fell over the chamber. "Their warships," continued Krata. "Whatever defensive capability renders them immune to our scans might be effective against the Swarm. We've observed that the Swarm's primary attack strategy relies on neural scanning to identify weaknesses. You suggest we ask humans to fight our war?" asked Counselor Drax incredulously. "I suggest we have no choice," replied Krata. "But more than that, I suggest we finally learn what makes their ships so formidable." The decision wasn't taken lightly. After extensive debate, a delegation was sent to Earth, humanity's homeworld. The humans, who had been monitoring the Swarm's advance with growing concern, agreed to a joint defense initiative. What they couldn't understand was the Assembly's insistence on examining their warship technology. "Your vessels possess a defensive capability unlike anything we've encountered," explained High Elder Zoran to Admiral Helena Chen of the United Nations Space Command, "a capability that reacts violently when scanned or probed." Admiral Chen frowned. "With all due respect, Elder Zoran, our defensive systems are relatively straightforward. We have nothing that would react to scanning technology." "Then how do you explain the Thulian incident? The Lumina Research Station, dozens of other cases where attempts to analyze your warships resulted in catastrophic consequences." Chen's expression shifted from confusion to concern. "I'm not familiar with these incidents." The revelation stunned the Assembly delegation. Humans were genuinely unaware of the effect their ships had on scanning technology. Whatever was happening, it wasn't an intentional defensive measure. It was something unplanned, unexpected, perhaps even accidental. To solve the mystery once and for all, a joint human assembly team was formed. The UNSC Prometheus, a newly commissioned battleship, was placed in a secure testing facility orbiting an uninhabited moon. A specialized scanning array, built with safeguards based on everything learned from previous incidents, was aimed at the vessel. Admiral Chen insisted on being present for the test, along with the ship's designer, Dr. Marcus Reeve. On the assembly side, a volunteer team led by Dr. Tisoni would operate the scanner remotely. "Beginning preliminary scan," announced Tisoni, her voice tense. "Basic exterior analysis only." The first readings came back normal. Hull composition, external weapons systems, shield emitters, nothing unusual. "Proceeding to level 2 penetration," said Tisoni, scanning interior compartments. Again, nothing unexpected appeared. Crew quarters, engineering sections, command bridge, all standard configurations. "Moving to level 3, Tisoni continued. Deep structural analysis and power system mapping. This is where previous scans had encountered problems. The assembly team watched their monitors anxiously, ready to abort at the first sign of irregularities. For several tense moments, data flowed normally. Then it happened. Energy spike in the scanning array, reported a technician. Feedback loop forming. Abort scan, ordered Sony immediately. Systems not responding. The technician replied, panic edging into his voice. The scanners locked on. On the primary display, the image of the Prometheus began to distort. Shadows seemed to move across its hull, shadows that had no source. The scanning beam, visible as a faint blue light, appeared to be bending, twisting around the ship as if being pulled into it. In the observation room, Admiral Chen turned to Dr. Reeve. "What the hell is happening to my ship?" Reeve was staring at his datapad, his face pale. "It's not your ship, Admiral. It's what's inside your ship." "Explain," demanded Chen. "The Prometheus, like all our warships, uses a quantum processing core," Reeve said, his voice barely above a whisper. "A system I designed based on quantum entanglement principles. It allows for instantaneous calculations across vast distances, giving our ships faster response times in combat situations." "What does that have to do with?" "The cores operate partly in quantum superposition," Reeve continued, "existing simultaneously in multiple states. When functioning normally, they're stable. But when an external system, like a scanner, attempts to observe and measure that superposition." Dr. Sony, who had been listening via the communication link, suddenly understood. "Quantum observation collapse. You've created a system that fundamentally rejects being observed." The implications were staggering. Human warships weren't equipped with some advanced defensive technology. They contained quantum cores that, by their very nature, reacted catastrophically to being observed too closely. The act of scanning forced these systems into a state of quantum collapse, releasing bursts of energy and information that overwhelmed and corrupted the scanning systems and, by extension, the minds of those operating them. "But why don't human operators experience these effects?" asked Zoran. "Because we don't try to observe the quantum state directly," explained Reeve. "Our interfaces are designed to work with the outputs, not the process itself. It's like looking at a shadow instead of the object casting it." As they spoke, the scanning array began to smoke. Alarms blared as systems shut down in sequence. On the monitors, the image of the Prometheus stabilized, the strange shadows receding. "Scanners offline," reported the technician. "Complete system failure." Dr. Sony exhaled slowly. "At least we know now. It's not a weapon or a defense system. It's a fundamental property of your quantum cores. They exist in a state that violently rejects external observation." The revelation transformed the assembly's understanding of human technology. What they had feared as a weapon was actually a limitation, a quirk of human quantum computing that had accidentally created the most effective defense against scanning technology in the galaxy. More importantly, it offered a potential solution to the swarm threat. If the swarm relied on neural scanning to adapt to attacks, then human warships, with their scan-resistant quantum cores, might be uniquely positioned to combat them. The joint human assembly fleet that assembled to confront the swarm became known as Operation Blindside. Human warships formed the vanguard, their quantum cores creating zones of quantum instability that disrupted the swarm's neural network. Assembly vessels provided support, targeting weaknesses identified by human tactical systems. The battle lasted 7 days. When it ended, the swarm had been pushed back beyond the galactic barrier, their hive mind shattered by exposure to the quantum distortion fields generated by human vessels. In the aftermath, the relationship between humanity and the assembly fundamentally changed. The mystery that had once inspired fear now commanded respect. Human warships, with their peculiar quantum cores, became the foundation of a new defensive strategy against threats from beyond known space. Yet questions remained. Dr. Reeve's quantum processing technology had been designed for computational efficiency, not defense. The violent reaction to scanning was an unintended side effect. But was it truly accidental? Or had humanity, in its evolutionary journey as both predator and prey, instinctively created technology that protected itself from observation, that lashed out when something tried to see too deeply into its workings? The Assembly Council debated this question extensively, but reached no consensus. What they did agree on was a new protocol. Human warships would be classified as strategic assets of the highest order. Their technology would not be copied or reverse engineered, not because it couldn't be, but because the consequences of failure were too grave to contemplate. As for humanity, they embraced their new role in the galactic community with characteristic adaptability. Once they understood the effect their quantum cores had on scanning technology, they refined and enhanced it, creating specialized vessels designed specifically to disrupt enemy targeting systems. A new saying emerged among assembly species: if you want to know what's inside a human warship, don't look, ask. It reflected the growing understanding that humanity's most powerful weapon wasn't their technology, but their willingness to share it on their own terms. The legacy of Operation Ghostlight and the discovery of the quantum observation effect extended far beyond military applications. It fundamentally altered how the Assembly approached new technologies, emphasizing cooperation over surveillance, dialogue over analysis. In the end, the smartest aliens in the galaxy learned a profound lesson. Some mysteries aren't meant to be uncovered through observation, but understood through collaboration. And sometimes, the most effective defense isn't a weapon, but a property so fundamental to your existence that you don't even recognize it as special until someone else tries to look too closely.